You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Folks, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. It's the show that you know and love about all things footwear. You heard it at the intro, but it is true. We talk about the business of the footwear industry. I'm not fashionable. I don't know anything about that stuff, but I'm super curious about business. Good news for everybody is we do have someone fashionable. Jasmine, how are you doing today?
Yeah, that is me. I'm very fashionable. I would say so myself. I'm doing great today, Andy. How about you?
I'm doing all right. You know, Jasmine, I think one of the biggest things that we've seen come up in the past couple of weeks, we always run data and analysis on things that are happening in the marketplace to let our members know and the broader industry know what the trend lines are. And there's some brands out there that are doing fantastic right now. I mean, absolutely killing it in this environment. There's other people who are getting killed in this environment, just because of, to a certain extent, some of it's just product driven. Maybe they don't have the right product in this environment. Some of it is the fact that operations just weren't improved. They just never invested in things that they needed to. They didn't work with good partners, etc.
Yeah,
say what?
Some people were ahead of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Some people saw. Yeah, exactly. Biggest concern right now that we've seen that's come out, new data report that we saw, the footwear prices. So this is discounting that we're seeing taking place in this environment as people try to move product out. Discounting is footwear prices dropped or plummeted to the lowest level in 68 years, meaning, and that was very recently in the last month. And that means that people are really trying to tag their shoes with any prices at the lowest point they can to attract people in stores or to sell product. Yeah. But the challenge of that is if you're doing that, you're also looking at higher costs in your supply chain because of tariffs that have been added, inefficiencies or not optimizations or capacity issues, port issues, all these different things. And so, Jasmine, I think, we did a webinar not too long ago where we had the CEO of RG Berry come on, Bob, and his really salient point was if you want to make margin in this environment and you want to make profit and you want to succeed, not just survive, you got to start to look in your supply chains and figure out where those opportunities are to cut costs, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So with that, we thought we would have someone come on today that is an expert in that and has been doing it her entire career, helping people look at their supply chains, examine them, interrogate reasons why they do what they do to make it better. Right, Kerry? Are you a supply chain interrogator?
Yes, I shine the light on things.
I think that's a good way to say it, right? And I think more than ever, we really need to interrogate why we're doing what we're doing and where we're moving product to, either warehouse-wise or straight to brick and mortars, what products we have, all that kind of stuff. I think that should be your new title, supply chain interrogator.
Well, but it's also, just because you've been doing it this way for years doesn't mean you need to keep doing it that way. And obviously there are different products that are going to work better in this time. But at the same time, what are you doing? And, when we ask these questions, we're not being judgmental. It's just try to understand what's happening, and then based on business that we are doing with successful people, try to incorporate some of that into our solution that we present to the next person.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we want everybody to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks who've been to any of our events, Kerry is one of our footwear family. Farrow has been a strategic partner of FDRA's for many years and directly contributes to the association to support our member companies and help us drive intelligence to those folks around these issues. So, Kerry, really quickly, Farrow based in Canada, but you guys do a number of things for companies around customs, around freight forwarding. Maybe just give us a quick summation of Farrow and the services you provide to the footwear industry.
Sure. Farrow is actually 109 years old, and we are still family owned after all this time. We are located in the US as well as Canada with a global reach. So we it's not our own offices around the world, but we're in a really good network of other freight forwarders and customs brokers who share a lot of the same business values that we do. So, we are very well connected, but we do have a lot of offices in Canada and the US and 750 employees. So we're not small potatoes, that's for sure. I think we're kind of like that nice mid-sized company because we're not so big that you have to fit into our system, and we're not so small that we can't adapt and make changes to be able to suit somebody else's needs.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. You're kind of the cozy, for this age, as perfect as the cozy middle, the warm and fuzzies and getting the job done and executing. I feel like, and you could tell me this, but I feel like for our footwear industry, as people have been doing customs or importing and all that stuff for decades, still have problems and challenges because of the global complexities of trade, new trade agreements coming online, dealing with new tariffs, trying to classify new product, and trying to figure out where the hell to move it to get benefits around e-commerce and duty free and things like that. Every day as your phone ringing and people are asking you questions about what's happening, is it still in your mind, even though if somebody's been doing it 20, 30 years, it's still super complex and difficult?
Absolutely. I think we have, especially during these times, have become more important to our clients, as most companies have had to reduce work hours or furlough employees. And so where we are a service provider, we are essential. And a lot of our clients have had to let go of people that had the relationship with us. So now we have almost had to start over with some of our clients and try to tell them who we are, why we matter. And so much of our job now is education. And then, of course, they threw in the USMCA right in the middle of it all. And, we've got people who really have no idea what's going on. And they're getting all of these messages about this new trade agreement. And they're wondering, how does this affect me? We've got people that are definitely trying to mobilize and change manufacturing locations and taking advantage of all of the different trade agreements. So you bet we have become very important to people, and we're certainly happy to have any conversation. We may not be the best fit for a particular company, but we probably know who would be a good fit for them, or at least try to give them help and advice to get them in the right direction.
That's great. And I'm a little concerned about what you're saying, because I also have seen it as well. There's kind of a brain drain that we've seen in our industry because of this. So as people try to figure out how to reorganize, restructure companies, obviously there's an unfortunately side effect of casualties of these jobs and these experts that are in supply chain or customs that may no longer have jobs at some of these companies. Have you, I'm guessing there's a large increase in inquiries from these companies. How do you guys manage that? Obviously, they're calling you guys and you guys are expert consultants. So obviously you have to charge some for the time. What are some issues around that? I think this is a great opportunity for you guys just to share how you're trying to be really good partners with people and what they can expect from working with service providers like yourself, right?
Sure. Well, it's funny because some people are so good at compliance that they almost got themselves worked out of a job because there's no issues. They never hear anything. And then they go away and customs starts calling. And then all of a sudden lights go off and sirens are ringing everywhere and everybody's running around and they're like, why don't we have anybody in compliance? So, and that is very, very common. But I think, if a company doesn't have that expertise in-house, or have relieved themselves of that expertise, our fees, you sort of have to look at what are the potential penalties or liabilities, and does a couple $100 outweigh that? Our charge to do a project is not as much as somebody's salary. So, and where else can we fit in? There are other services we provide besides customs clearance. So when you're looking for a service provider, can they do multiple things? And so when we're doing freight and warehousing and customs clearance, we can reduce our charges because it doesn't cost us as much to have that client. We're not communicating a bunch of information to external sources. We have all of that available to us online through our own systems.
I think that's great for people to think about when they're working with someone, is the expertise and the value across different departments and different issue lanes, right? Like sometimes you do want someone who is zero focused on something, but oftentimes you want someone who's an expert at many different things that can help you across that. So I think that's a really good advice in terms of working and finding new service providers and partners. Or even having conversation. I mean, I think that the other thing is too, people need to be honest and go to their service providers and be like, look, these people aren't working here anymore. It's a little bit tougher for us. We need some help. How can you help us? What does that look like? Let's figure it out and stop having these transactional conversations with knee-jerk reactions, as you say. Like all of a sudden something happens and all of a sudden you need us. There should be real relationships matter, I think, more than ever. And I think it behooves a lot of our companies to consider that and work with people in that way. Kerry, when you're looking at the complete chaos of our supply chains right now, and I say that because, and you can speak to this exactly, but we see a lot of churn and, as you say, people looking for new places to source and new places to manufacture. We look at capacity issues and costs. People are considering with these new free trade agreements, do I warehouse in Canada or Mexico, or do I bring it straight in? What are some things right now that you're looking at that are really, kind of top of mind that people need to keep on top of, or key challenges that you guys are helping address?
Sure. Well, I think capacity obviously is number one, knowing that there were so many blank sailings that happened, and now there's just this huge backlog overseas, right. And trying to actually get it on a boat is one. Particularly in Canada, we've got a couple of port issues. Strike in Montreal has really done a lot to the East Coast. They diverted a lot of containers to Halifax, which is a smaller port. And even though freight can move out of there, the rail lines in Montreal are clogged. So you've got people that have freight sitting in Halifax and it can't go anywhere. And then we've got a rail car shortage in Vancouver. So that has caused issues as well. There's no way to actually get it out of the port. So we had an incident a couple weeks ago where somebody needed to have a container diverted to get it into their foreign trade zone in the US. And for whatever reason, they were having some issues. And even though they're not a client, we were actually able to get everything all sorted out. And, we had a team of drivers from Vancouver to Indiana. And that's the sort of stuff that just gets my juices flowing. I just love, when, you really feel like you're solving a problem. Right. And that's the sort of reaction that companies need. It costs them a lot more money, to the tune of probably $6,000 more than what they were originally budgeting, but they needed that product. And so you have to weigh, like, can we wait for 2 or 3 weeks, or do we really need this product? Like, what's it going to cost us if we can't fill our orders? You know, and I know a lot of companies, they deal with retailers who have chargebacks if they don't make their deliveries. So, yeah.
Very, very tough. Really quickly, the foreign trade zones, remind everybody what that is and what the benefits are. And I think what we're seeing is more and more people trying to utilize that to try to, pay duties when they're actually shipping it somewhere versus as soon as it lands and sticks in a warehouse, correct?
Yeah, so the foreign trade zone in the U.S. is a quite complicated process to get done. Many companies do an analysis on a regular basis and just don't think that it's actually going to work just because of the cost factor to get everything set up and manage it. Can you use a third party? Did they even have space? And that is a huge issue right now is do these bonded warehouses actually have space? So it allows you, to bring product in without paying duty. And then once it leaves the warehouse, you will do a warehouse entry and pay the duty on it. And we have the same concept in Canada as well. So a lot of companies are now choosing to perhaps import in bond in Canada and exit the material either by truck or small package carrier or what have you to get it out and delivered in the US. But again, you have to really weigh those costs because, warehousing prices in Canada are a little bit higher. But how much would you pay in duty otherwise?
It sounds like just a lot of scenario planning right now, right? Like you're looking at...
It's a lot of analysis and it's a lot of investigation. So that's when you put on your little... you put on your little interrogation hat and... get out your Excel and start doing some math.
Elementary, Holmes, elementary. We've got the supply chain fixed. Excellent. That's hilarious. The other big churn is, and we don't ever want to get political in the show, but we've got a presidential election in the U.S., which could have huge ramifications on trade everywhere globally. If the president loses and Joe Biden comes in, it could look fundamentally different than it does in some ways. It might look the same. But with new administrations, there's always this possibility where we could loosen up rules and regulation. I mean, you could even see something like the TPP come back onto the table, possibly, fingers crossed. But when we're looking at stuff like that, and then also, free trade agreements currently coming into effect, you mentioned kind of the NAFTA 2.0 or 5.0, whatever you want to call it now, as many times it's been written and rewritten and redone. How is that having an impact on kind of trade and customs and things like that?
Well, I think we're seeing, particularly with the additional duties from China, people trying to navigate around those. By importing into Canada, if they are doing smaller shipments like the Section 321, so those are the under $800 per person per day allowances, so they can come into Canada and many companies are avoiding that additional 25% duty or paying the duty coming into Canada and filing for a drawback when it leaves. But it just allows for, better pricing. You pay the price though on perhaps additional transit time, maybe a titch more in cost, but the overall landed cost goes down. So, trade agreements are a lot of fun to try and navigate around. And I think people need to do more investigation into trade agreements and looking at the origins of their product. And, particularly with the one in Europe, the CETA agreement, if people are selling those products into Canada, if they bring them in directly from Europe, there is more likelihood that they qualify for duty-free status. But if they come transshipped through the U.S., then they don't qualify.
Yeah. So there, I mean, obviously these things are complicated. It's why companies like Farrow exist. It's why we have people like Kerry who support our association and come in and provide that expertise at our events. And Farrow, again, coming up very soon, we're having a customs conference on many of these things, a deep dive into these things. It behooves everybody, whether you import one pair of shoes or 400 million pairs of shoes, because folks like Nike already signed up for this. For good reason. We're going to do deep dives into many of these conversations. We're going to scenario plan. We're going to look at trade issues, look at all the custom rules, and really provide really good insights for everybody. It's super affordable. It's a digital format to help everybody this year. We'll also have CBP speakers on to share insights. We'll have Stacy on, who is the director of footwear customs for the U.S. government. She's an import specialist that classifies all the shoes, helping do sample reviews. It's a huge opportunity. Farrow is a big partner with that. Kerry, in all our conversations today, did I miss anything that's like a hot topic that you think we really need to bring up and discuss as well?
No, I think you've captured everything really well. I cannot stress enough that we all need each other right now.
Right.
People need us as a service provider, and I think that they need to view us hopefully more as experts in a situation versus trying to make things worse. We don't always have great news for people.
Right.
But at the heart of it all, we really have the best interest, and we want to make sure that people are allowed to stay in business. When you have to tell somebody that they've been classifying things wrong this whole time, or and all of a sudden now they're going to have this huge duty bill, or their product doesn't actually qualify for the trade agreement that they have been claiming, and they have to go back and pay duty. Like, these are all things that are really, really critical to a company's business, and working with the service provider and really having honest conversations it is so important.
And the other side of it is too, there's a lot of companies out there still not taking advantage of stuff. As we've been talking about, free trade, Note 5, a ton of, you would be shocked at how many times we're asking someone, are you using this tariff-free engineering kind of process? And they're like, no, should I be? And it's like, well, only if you want to save a couple $1 million, it's your choice. It's like one of those conversations where it's like, please, please, please join us on our customs and tariff conference. Go to FDRA.org. The information's there on our events and training page. Folks, you have to be there to save money or optimize or as Kerry said, not to make the mistakes up front that'll catch you in the back end. Much opportunity right now around that. So
absolutely. I did one really big area that people truly are not taking advantage of right now is the duty drawback. But the issue there is that so many people cannot provide good import data. So you have to be able to supply very detailed import information, very detailed export information. And when people are presented with this, all of a sudden they're like, oh, we can't do that. And so you just think of how many millions of dollars are being left on the table because maybe they're using a broker that cuts corners and doesn't actually report everything that's needed to be reported on the import. So these are all really good conversations to have.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
With that, I do want to bring Jasmine in because I think she's going to round out our conversation with a discussion around fashion. And Kerry's super excited. She's probably talking about that, the flu vlogs or whatever those shoes are I can't pronounce that she loves so much. So now Jasmine and Kerry just take over the show and converse. And, Jasmine, tell us what's happening trend-wise right now in this crazy world around fashion.
Well, for the audience, not only is Kerry great at her job, but she's also great at picking out her outfits for all of our events. So I haven't been able to see her in person, so I'm really excited just to chat just for a second to say, Kerry, what have you been buying during this time? I think I've surprised myself about the amount of shoes that I've bought during this time, since we can't do much, but sometimes I just have the urge and I just, pull the trigger on that add to cart button. So what have you been wearing during this time?
Well, so I just had my birthday a little while ago, and I was actually given a pair of Paisley Baroque Fluvogs. They are sort of a teal and turquoise color with a little bit of navy ruffle. They're stunning. But for myself, what have I been buying? I've been doing a ton of hiking the last 6 months. And so I have gotten some new hiking boots. And I've got...
brands you've been loving?
Sorry?
Which brands have you been loving for your hiking shoes?
Oh, Keen. And I'm working on a pair of Downers right now, trying to get some winter weight hiking boots because I'm still going to continue on with my outdoor activities. I also bought a pair of Puma shoes that are super cool. They're made out of recycled water bottles, and they are quite popular with the girls on my rugby team. So yeah, just lots of sort of the athleisure outdoor type. And I think that that's consistent with what sales figures are showing.
Yep. For sure.
Do you ever, Kerry, when you're buying shoes, do you ever contact them and interrogate them about what their supply chain optimization is for the shoes to get to you in a timely manner?
Well, funny thing, so I do buy a lot of shoes online, but I have gotten the Fluvogs from the store downtown in Calgary and have been able to get pretty quick shipping, so that's always nice.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Jasmine, how about you? What's fashionable on your feet these days?
Yeah, so Nike has had like a lot of collaborations with women during this time, so I've been picking up some of those. So they're not shoes that I would wear on a regular basis, but just nice things to have in my closet. And I agree, Kerry, like my shipping has been pretty good. Like every now and then, like something will get stuck in the mail, but I commend like the mailing systems, because I feel like at the beginning of this, it was kind of slow and shaky, but now I'm getting things fairly quick, so I'm happy about that.
Well, I think some of the issue too is that Amazon Prime has sort of now gotten into everybody else's minds. Like, well, if Amazon can get it here same day, why can't you? So,
right.
People are starting to like step up their shipping game.
Yep.
And price is always important, obviously, but it's interesting to see how people are changing even those patterns to be able to get stuff to the consumer faster.
Yep, I agree.
I just want to see what's going to happen over the holidays. I don't think there is enough vehicles to transport the amount of product that's going to be purchased. So I think there's going to be delays. I think there's going to be some upset people. If you have kids, buy the toys early. Be my advice. That's what we're trying to do here is tee it up and get it done so that we don't have to worry about something coming in last minute. I do think that's going to be a big concern, is because I just don't think there's enough delivery vehicles to get to the last mile in the U.S., probably in Canada either. So we'll see how robust these supply chains are. I mean, hopefully lessons have been learned and people are adding in fleets and things like that. But I do think that is the concern. Is you can handle a certain amount, but beyond that, there's just nothing you can do about it. So we'll see.
I think we're trying to do more experiences now than stuff. And, shoes will always be a need. Clothes will always be a need. That's never going to go away. But, stuff and things, we are genuinely trying to be more experience orientated when we're doing purchasing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kerry, thanks so much for coming on today. And if people want to learn more about Farrow, obviously, Kerry Rasmussen, you can LinkedIn her. You can go to, what's the URL? Farrow.com?
Farrow.com, Farrow.com.
Perfect. Kerry, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time today and sharing some insights around how our companies need to form better relationships and how to work better with service providers like yourself to solve some of their challenges. And also just some things that are going around, all the churn that we see happening, things to think about. And folks, again, if you're going to join us for the Customs and Tariff Conference, go to FDRA.org. You can find out on events and training. That's going to be in November. I know our producer Blake always says never date anything. I don't care. It's in November 2020, in case you're in 2025 coming back to this. Hopefully 2025 looks wonderful and everybody can travel and airfare's cheap. And you can find somewhere on a nice beach resort at a good price. So we hope for that. But with that, folks, as always, thank you for listening to Shoe In Show, covering all things footwear today. Really a focus on supply chains, customs, importing, which impacts our industry because obviously in America, 99% of all shoes are imported. So a huge issue. But again, thanks to Kerry and Farrow for their support and for joining us today to share some insights. If you have ideas on topics you want to hear us discuss, if you have ideas for guests we should have on the show, please drop us a line. You can go to shoeinshow.com. At the bottom left is a little audio button where you can leave me a voicemail message. And I will get that and I will respond to you either by voice or by email. But we do respond. So with that, thank you guys for listening. Thanks as always. And until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.